March 24, 1987, Josefina Rivera, using a Philadelphia phone booth, made a frantic call to the police. What she told them would shock even the most seasoned detective. Rivera and 5 other women had been kidnapped and held captive by Gary Heidnik, a Philadelphia preacher who violated, assaulted, and tortured them in the basement of his home. 2 of the women didn't survive, dying at the hands of this depraved man. Heidnik, born in Ohio on November 22, 1943, lived a troubled youth. Both his parents were alcoholics and his father abusive. His mother suffered with mental health issues, eventually ending things by consuming poison. Shannon Heidnik, daughter of Heidnik's brother Terry, stated,
"The whole family was screwed up and weird. My mom told me how their dad beat Gary real bad with a toy wooden airplane once because he peed his pants. His dad was an alcoholic and his mom took poison. They found her in the basement. She was tired of the abuse. They were really sick parents, and they gave their kids some serious problems."
The parents divorced in 1946, with the children going to live with their mother. Not long after, the 2 boys moved back in with their father, who had since remarried. The reasons why the boys moved back isn't clear. It's assumed due to her mental health issues combined with alcoholism, custody was awarded to the father. It's been noted that Gary, as a child, suffered a severe head injury, smashing his skull and suffering a misshapen cranium, which is believed to have caused behavioral aberration. His brother Terry states Gary's behavior changed after this event. His schoolmates called him football head, isolating him further from his peers. Gary's father convinced him in 1961 at 17 to drop out of school and join the military. He showed promise early on during basic training. While displaying ambition to join the military police, he wasn't accepted to pursue the program. After basic training, he was sent to Texas for medical training to become a medic, and upon completion transferred to a hospital in West Germany. Gary stopped following orders and made claims of being experimented on with LSD. He was honorably discharged a year after his enlistment, receiving a full disability pension and being diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder. Heidnik, after a period of drifting, mental health issues, and many attempts of self-harm leading up to and following his mother's self-inflicted death in 1970. He started the United Church of the Ministers of God in 1971 in Philadelphia with just 5 followers and a $1,500 investment. He managed to grow that investment to over $500,000. In 1976, he sold his house and purchased a 3-story house, renting out 2 of the floors. He lived on 1 floor with his mentally disabled girlfriend, Anjanette Davidson. In 1978, they had a child, a daughter named Maxine. The child was placed into foster care due to Anjanette's mental disability. Soon after, he signed Anjanette's sister, Alberta, who was also mentally disabled, out from a mental institution in Harrisburg for day leave, only they didn't return. Authorities found her chained and locked in a room in the basement. Heidnik was arrested and charged with kidnapping, rape, unlawful restraint, false imprisonment, involuntary deviant sexual intercourse, and interfering with the custody of a committed person. In November 1978, he was found guilty and sentenced to 3 to 7 years in jail. The original sentence was overturned on appeal, and Heidnik spent 3 years of his incarceration in mental institutions prior to being released in April 1983 under the supervision of a state-sanctioned mental health program. In 1984, Gary purchased his 3rd house and began advertising his church. The following year, Heidnik married a mail-order bride, Betty Disto, from the Philippines. However, the marriage was short-lived after Disto found out that Heidnik had affairs with 3 other women, and in addition, he had also forced his wife to watch while he had relations with other women. After his wife Betty left him in 1986, Heidnik was arrested yet again and charged with assault, indecent assault, spousal rape, and involuntary deviant sexual intercourse. The charges were later dismissed when Betty failed to appear for the preliminary hearing. Unfortunately, this probably instilled further confidence in Gary to further carry on with his twisted plans. Unbeknownst to Heidnik, until his ex-wife demanded child support, Disto had given birth to his son, Jesse John Disto, after the divorce. At this point in September 1986, Gary had 2 failed marriages and 3 children from 3 different women. According to Gary, the state kept taking his kids. He needed to take action to prevent this from happening. He was trying to enslave 10 African American girls and have a baby with all of them. He was going to create a perfect race. He believed that the races eventually, hundreds of years from now, would all be mixed and there would only be one race. And that's when we would find peace. He believed white people should mix with black people and vice versa so we could get closer to a perfect race. He believed tall people should mate with short people and short people should never mate with short people. He had theories and thought that he was going to improve society. On November 25th, Heidnik found Josefina Rivera, a part-time African-American sex worker. Taking her to his house, he led her upstairs to the bedroom where they had intercourse. Soon after, Gary choked her until she fell unconscious. He then took her to the basement and placed her in chains as he began to dig a pit to hold her in. If Josefina was to try to escape or misbehave, she would be put in the pit and it would be covered over with a weighted board, leaving her in complete darkness. Only 8 days later, on December 3, 1986, Heidnik abducted a mentally disabled Sandra Lindsay. Heidnik had impregnated her previously, but she had an abortion which angered him. This may be the reason he chose her next. Both women were only fed periodically and only partially clothed. Heidnik would assault and grape each of them almost daily. At night, they would be forced into the pit to sleep. December 23rd, he brought 19-year-old Lisa Thomas over to his home. He drugged her wine, and she awoke in the basement with the other women. A week later, on January 2, 1987, Heidnik abducted Deborah Dudley. She proved to be a bit of a handful for Gary. She constantly tried to fight off his advances, refusing to listen to orders. This behavior caused her more beatings, as well as spending most of the time in the pit for disobedience. Gary humiliated the 4 girls, forcing them to perform sexually together, constantly graping and torturing them while sustaining their hunger with dog food. January 18th, he abducted the 5th girl, 18-year-old Jacqueline Askins, the youngest of Gary's victims. On February 7th, Gary became quite angry with Sandra Lindsay. Although the exact reason is unknown at this time, Heidnik hung her from a ceiling beam tied to her wrist for 2 days as punishment. The following morning, after 68 days of torture and abuse, Sandra succumbed to her injuries and died. Her body was taken upstairs to be dismembered. The arms and legs were wrapped and stored in a freezer. Ribs were cooked in the oven, and her head boiled on the stove, some being fed to his dogs, and the rest is rumored to have been mixed in dog food and fed to his captives. A few days later, neighbors called authorities complaining about a horrible smell coming from Gary's home. When police arrived to question Gary, he quickly apologized, explaining he had fallen asleep while cooking a roast. They believed him and left. After this incident, Gary would bribe the girls to tell on each other for not following rules. Josefina informed him shortly after that the other girls were formulating a plan to attack him and escape. As punishment, the 3 girls plotting escape were made deaf using a screwdriver to puncture their eardrums. Gary came to trust Josefina from this point as she began taking part in the punishment and torture of the other 3 girls. Her actions were rewarded with movies on the main floor, away from the others, and grape taking place under more favorable conditions. Electrocution became one of his preferred methods of torture. All the girls, with the exception of Josefina, were subject to this. On March 19, 1987, Heidnik had 2 of the girls fill the pit with water, and Deborah Dudley was tossed in. Heidnik ordered Josefina to apply electricity to the chains. Unfortunately, this round of torture caused the death of Deborah. With the help of Josefina, Gary disposed of the body within the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. March 23rd, the 2 of them abducted Agnes Adams. The next day, March 24, 1987, Josefina asked if she could possibly go visit her family. As crazy as it is, Gary agreed and let her go, assuming she would return to him after visiting. Josefina called 911 and Gary was arrested. On July 1, 1988, Heidnik was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, 6 counts of kidnapping, 5 counts of rape, 4 counts of aggravated assault, and 2 counts of involuntary deviant sexual intercourse. He was sentenced to death and incarcerated at the State Correctional Institution. Gary tried to plead insanity to no prevail. He even insisted the girls were already locked in the basement when he purchased the house. He never appealed the death sentence, stating, "Blood will be on the state's hands for condemning an innocent man." The 3 surviving girls wanted Josefina Rivera charged for her part in the abuse, torture, and for killing Deborah. The district attorney didn't agree stating she did what she had to, tricking Gary and ultimately bringing him to justice. What do you guys think of Josefina? Did she maybe go too far, or were her actions justifiable to the end result? Comment below. If you enjoyed the video, please give a like and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.